Evening, guys. Hope everyone's holding up well. Just one tiny perspective on all this unusual stuff going on. In my opinion, this is not the time for skill set assimilation. Everyone has a skill, everyone has a bunch of skills. They're all valuable. In times of challenge or need or whatever the case is, something I've seen before, differently, of course, no one's ever seen this before, but something I've seen before is people trying to kind of just by osmosis take in what they think is the most useful that others know. And my recommendation to you, everyone has some type of community, everyone has some type of scene around them, is identify what you're good at, identify what you bring to the table of value, and optimize that. Practice that, hone that, and contribute that to the group, contribute that to your community or whatever the case is. That's what we're doing here, and it works marvelously. If you're not Batman, then the last time that you would want to find out that you're not Batman is if you've got Bane standing in front of you. So we use the term stay in your lane. That can be a really positive thing too. We all have something to bring to the table. So identify it, optimize it, and bring it to the table. And if your skill set is so complete that you are the best person at everything that you do around you, my assertion would be that maybe you're not hanging around the right people. So draw on others that are doing great things and offer what you can. And the last little piece on this is really having a firearm in your house that you've never shot or practiced with is just a questionable decision. So while we all need to be looking out for ourselves in a high order right now, do so intelligently. Do so with mindfulness and caution and not recklessness. Let's get into other things besides that. We got a lot of great questions this time through, so we're going to answer them, and then we're going to cover whatever else you guys want to cover. Already all my favorites on here. So let's talk a little bit about convergence. It's a couple months out. We're hoping that all the aliens go back to their planet by then. May 30th and 31st, there's still a few spots left. We're looking forward to filling them up with great people, and so far the roster of who is coming to Convergence is just incredible. Additionally, on Saturday night, we're going to premiere Don't Stand in Line, which is a production by my friend and a phenomenal filmmaker, Anthony Mareschi. I'm a part of it. A couple other great people are a part of it. And we're gonna premiere it the evening of Convergence on a big screen, and that's gonna be great. Right afterwards, someone who's a part of it also, Chris Wren, who started Bridge 9 Records and Sully's brand in Boston, is going to be speaking. He's got an incredible story. He's built two incredible brands. Bridge 9 is just such a phenomenal label with so much history, and we've worked with them in the past. They were a sponsor of our BMX contest way back when. We've got a couple of flyers with our logo and the Bridge 9 logo on it, and also FBM Bike Company, my friend Steve Crandall, on there also, and we're all a part of this new video project. Pretty much unrelatedly, Anthony just picked us, and we happen to all have worked together in the past. So Chris is going to speak after premiering Don't Stand in Line, and then the headline speaker, all goes well, the headline speaker for Convergence evening is Matt Hoffman. We just learned that this week. Matt Hoffman, I don't know. I'm not really sure how much you can say about Matt Hoffman. He's a professional BMX bike rider. That's the short story. Created the X Games. He's responsible for possibly most of the hard tricks anyone has ever done on a vert ramp on a bike. And is just really a phenomenal individual. Has through all of it forever just stayed the most just He's incredible. He's incredible. I saw a great headline in a bike magazine a couple months ago, and it said, "Don't meet your heroes," and the "don't" was crossed off. And I thought that was super intelligent, because I've met a lot of my heroes and I wouldn't want to meet them, and some of them I would rather beat up than meet again. But there's still a few out there that are on the top of that list, and meeting Jeremy Jones in the past, and then knowing Matt, and then also having him come here this time, it's incredible. Incredible is an understatement. So Convergence will be excellent. We're looking forward to that. And again, thank you so much for the support of that. Let's look at some questions, and you're welcome to kick them down here in the bottom too. I'm learning how to actually see them on the screen. Okay, questions. First and foremost, injury strategies and priorities, training and mindset. Big. That's a big question. Injury strategies and priorities is probably an hour topic on its own. When you're banged up, you have to be super mindful, but you can't be so mindful that you aren't also durable. If you never push past what is baseline discomfort, you will never truly recover from a serious injury, and will certainly never advance from it. So this isn't a call to arms to be reckless when you're hurt or anything like that. But there's a durability that comes with true injury recovery and progress afterwards that has to be addressed and has to be thought about. And if we don't think about it, then we just never progress again. I've been injured a lot, and I've climbed back up, and it's never easy, and it gets harder all the time. But if we stay where it's comfortable, then we won't ever get past that. And then the training while you're injured is different. You just have to be really creative. There's a couple other good questions about this that we'll get into within the hour, and a lot of it is just really based on patience and adaptability. If you're not paying attention to what you're doing and how you're doing it, you may get stronger again, but you're not going to be optimal again, and you're probably going to be more susceptible to getting hurt. So we'll come back and we'll get to more injury and recovery stuff. A question just popped up on here. Recently started training jiu-jitsu. What, in your opinion, is the best mace and kettlebell work for a beginning white belt? Intelligent mace and kettlebell work, all of it transfers directly to grappling. And the ways that we do it transfer really directly, because that's what they were built for. Wolf Brigade training and the training that we've done prior, even back in CrossFit Long Beach, transfers seamlessly to martial arts and tactics and things like that, because that's what it was built for. Fitness for me and for us was after, BMX bike riding and things like that, and then martial arts for many years, and then strength and conditioning, realizing that one insulated all the others. So intelligent, violent, positionally accurate mace and kettlebell lifting transfers to grappling really, really well. Better than anything else I've seen. Good question, thank you. Will there be an audiobook of Theft of the Age read by me? Thank you. That's a great question. So I've been thinking about it, and I've done some dry runs of it, and I don't think it would be absolutely unlistenable. We just have to figure out the standardized recording process. A great suggestion was made of doing it in intervals in a setting like this, something like an Instagram Live. Read a chapter or two and then do it again. We'll see. I would really enjoy that. I also just refuse to do it poorly. So if that happens, it will be something that I have to buckle down in and get right. But thank you. Amazing question. And the idea that that's even interesting to anyone is insane to me. So thank you. Will there be any Hell on Earth reissues? Yeah, so we've got a couple of Hell on Earth things coming up. We're going to re-release the Will of the Week shirt, which is old now. And the brand itself has been around for 25 years, and it, it started out doing a bunch of different stuff, show booking, and then on to clothing and things like that, contests, but BMX bike contests, things like that. So we're going to re-release the Will of the Week shirt. First and foremost, Hell on Earth is never going to be a fully functional brand again, but we have maintained integrity and dignity with it, and we won't ever put anything out that is just engineered for profit, because it just doesn't matter. It's not going to be something that's really like a full-on brand or anything that would be, I don't know, considered like a profit center. But we are going to put stuff out, and we look forward to it. And some of the stuff that we've made in the past that never really got any legs was strong. And so it would be great to have some people see that and be able to get their hands on it. But the first thing we'll do, it's 20 now, right? So 20 years, yeah. So the Will of the Week shirt is 20 years old. The Will of the Week graphic is 20 years old. So we're going to put that out early this year and make a real limited edition run of it, and make some corresponding stickers and stuff for it. So thank you. Yes, Hell on Earth stuff, small runs will be coming. We can't wait. Great question. Who are some of my teachers when it comes to critical thinking? I mean, I'm not sure if this is the exact answer that you're looking for, but really just failure has been my teacher for critical thinking. Since I was a kid, we've done unusual things, and they have gone well at some points, and they've gone really poorly at some points. And so anytime you're around someone and you're developing something and there's someone there that's better than you, and something goes well or something goes poorly, you have to look at what they did to get it there. You have to look at what you did to get it there. And so what I've been able to do, I think, and had a clean, clear perspective on, is when I've been involved in something, in an underlying role or in a leadership role, possibly to my detriment, I've been able to take very personally why things worked or why things didn't work. So my critical thinking leaders were those that worked on the projects that I worked on similarly, either before me or alongside me. And then once I got into martial arts, I was just so fortunate to be around people that were critical thinking martial arts. They weren't so dogmatic in any type of singular discipline or anything like that it was the end game. It was all just pieces. It was all just pieces of a puzzle. And then with strength and conditioning, of course, there were people that I looked to for that type of influence. My primary influences with that were from other arenas, were from martial arts and action sports and things like that. People who were really thinking outside the box and developing stuff that either hadn't been developed before or hadn't been optimized before. And I've put our own path down based on those notions. There wasn't a lot that looked anything like what we did in fitness before we did it, and that made it quite a challenge, but a worthwhile one. And as far as critical thinking now, anyone that says anything that sends a spark that we hadn't thought of or seen before is a teacher in critical thinking. It happens every day. It would be impossible to list everyone, because occasionally someone will sneak a sentence by that I've never heard of or never see again. That's fucking genius. So critical thinking, thought leaders are everywhere. You just have to look for them. Thank you, and a great question. What is the superior tool? Kettlebell versus mace, opinion versus fact. Well, the fact is that there's no superior tool. The fact is, anyone shilling a tool as the tool is trying to sell you their process, not the process. there is no one size fits all. There is no one thing that optimizes every other thing. And there's also no one perfect process. But that being said, there are ways, and provable ones, and ones that we've proven pretty soundly, that will improve a lot of stuff that has been left off the table. So when we think of primary tools, we think of a barbell, a kettlebell, and a mace. When we think of secondary tools or accessory tools, much like lifts, something like a sandbag or a large medicine ball or something like that, like those are phenomenal tools, but they're accessory tools, just like lifts. So there's primary and there's accessory lifts. The training tools are the same. We've combined barbell and kettlebell and mace lifting in a seamless way that integrates all the movement patterns and energy systems together, and also lets one draw off the other in a way that they're all awesome. I mean, we sell maces. I love maces. If I had one tool to grab for the rest of my life and walk around the fucking earth, it would be a mace. But I'm also in possession of the knowledge that that is not the only tool, and that there are things that I would be missing. The game is figure out the balance of what does what and what helps everything else improve. And then that's where you start kind of optimizing some things. And we've done that in a really unusual way, and still relatively unheralded. Even though a lot of the adaptations that we've made to kettlebell lifting and mace lifting are almost a decade old now, there's still just a ton of sleeping on them. No one really does it. I still see people doing the same old-timey stuff that is so well provenly not the best. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it's ego. I'm not sure if it's just habit or whatever the case is. But there's no one particular tool that's better than any other tool. Everything working together is what creates the best soup. And anyone that tells you that there's one tool that does everything and you don't need to train with anything else is an idiot. And that person has never optimized themselves. And I can only say that because we've optimized and helped optimize some of the strongest and most talented people in the world that were absolute experts in their craft. And when we turned the dial a little bit or added a slightly different stimulus, all of a sudden they were even more experts in their craft. Their proficiency was higher, their strength was higher, their positional accuracy was higher. And it was just the addition of a little bit of strategy and a little extra tool. So that's a good question, but there's no miracle drug. There's no magic bullet. Bailey, man, hello. What skills did my back injury surgery cause me to improve? Tips for rehabilitating from injury. Yeah, geez. Okay, so that's a cool continuation of the previous question. Patience, adaptability, sensible creativity, just durability, the importance of ticks on the dial, the importance of not looking for too much too fast. And then on the flip side of the coin, not waiting too long to push a little bit. Everything is going to be uncomfortable if you're truly injured. And it's really important to have a good manual therapist or a good doctor or something that really knows you, but also knows where you want to get. Most people will keep you in the box forever because there's a little bit more risk for them if you go out and try something that you don't land, if they let you go do that. But that's the problem, is that once people are injured, the conventional systems keep you essentially injured. So you may not be actually technically still injured, but either your function is so limited or your pain is still high or anything like that. And people just end up in these traps. They move poorly, they get addicted to pills, and the whole thing is a disaster. So when it comes to that, the patience comes in waiting for the injury to heal, but then the adaptability comes in doing every single possible thing you can while that thing is healing, and there is a lot. So I guess the other answer to the question is sensible innovation. So sensible creativity, but also figuring out what you need, and if it's not present, then you make it. You figure it out. It's a I don't know. It's a double-edged sword, that's for sure. But being injured and even being seriously injured and climbing back has made me really, really good at training people with any type of dysfunction or movement limitation or anything like that. And it's made it really easy to assess when that is in your brain versus when is it in your body. I truly believe that I can adjust details on any athlete walking the earth that's going to improve their performance. And part of it is for many, many years now, watching people move well and poorly, helping them move better, but also fixing myself in ways that it's not a drum that I beat all that often, but I there's no good sense in me being able to do some of the things I do right now. I've had 2 back surgeries. They both went poorly. One was a spinal fusion that turned my fucking left big toe off and left me with nerve pain in my leg for 8 years. Those aren't things you necessarily bounce back from and still have a lot of athletic capacity. So I struggle with a lot of things physically, but I'm still turning that dial, and we're still improving everybody. And thank you, Meg. We couldn't be happier to have you. It's been a true pleasure to watch and to help. So a lot of times too, when people get injured, they try and be too creative too quickly. They're doing all kinds of everything, bands this and bands and 5-pound dumbbells this, and a lot of times you're just over greasing the groove. You're doing too much volume on something that can't stand volume yet. If something is still partially injured and non-optimized, the last thing you want to do is 200 reps of anything. You don't want to do 200 reps of this, let alone with a band or a weight or anything like that. So there's a lot of sense and patience that has to go into recovering from an injury properly. It also requires somewhat abnormal durability. You have to be ready to pay the price for what you've done to yourself, and that's a high price. But we either pay it or we don't play. That's how the game works. Yeah, thanks, Chris. For programming for people who are generalists, fighters are generalists, law enforcement is generalist, military is generalist, swimmers are specialists, but it requires a general athletic capacity. If we were to train a specific professional something or other, of course, there would be little things that we would change, but the methodology and strategy would be the same. You have to build a tip-to-tail athlete, and the best way to do that is to optimize the primary tools and then fill in the blanks with the accessory tools. The unsung heroes is knowing how much of each, when in the training weeks, when to dial back, and then really just insulating the entire thing by building the power source. If you focus on building impervious midline, everything else will improve almost immediately. So that's one of the primary strategies we use. I'm having a great time right now remote training a professional baseball pitcher. It's a totally new realm for me, but it also isn't, because baseball pitching is a hell of a lot like striking, and a lot of the power adaptations and details are absolutely seamless and perfect. And this dude is a fucking surgeon. He's a high-level pitcher, and he's looking for a couple miles an hour on top of the pitch to get a contract he wanted this year, and we're getting him there. And for him, you would think a lot of the strategy would change, baseball. But really, it's floor to extremity power and mechanics. It's appropriate bracing. It's tip to tail insulation. Even the way that he's throwing the ball now, he's remembering that he's got to stay braced at the end of that snap, because that's when a lot of people get hurt, is in the release of the ball. So we've been practicing things where, he's holding on to something at the end, but he is following through with that thing. So strategy changes for application in nuance, but not in big picture. So that's a great question too. Paramedic, really struggling with dealing with low back pain, training, and work. Yeah, Ben, if you want to get in touch about that, I'd be happy to help. It's not like we're going to have a miracle cure, but a lot of sit-ups that people do are stupid, and a lot of stability-based sit-ups are boring. But that's what makes low back strong. And so, Ben, if you want to get in touch and ask a question about that privately, you're more than welcome to. Is this the apocalypse? I'm just gonna defer to one of my closest friends that said just earlier tonight, if this is the apocalypse, I'm significantly underwhelmed. So we'll just leave it at that. Oof. Best upstate New York hardcore band, past or present. I'm not sure. Who wants to hear? No one wants to hear about this. No one wants to. Anyway, so we're just going to say we're going to take Troy off the table as upstate, because if they're on the table, the game isn't even fair. Bands like Stigmata, Dying Breed, Politics, Contraband from Troy, just some of the meanest music that's ever been recorded by human beings. Chris with Zero Tolerance is right in there. So upstate's funny. There was so Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse is what I would consider upstate New York hardcore. Of course, there's little fringe pockets and there's some amazing bands from there. But the cities that I grew up in were Buffalo and Rochester and Syracuse. There's no one best. The variance and the variety and the creativity of some of the bands that came out of those eras of hardcore from those cities it set the tone for much of the country. Zero Tolerance is one of the unsung heroes of hardcore in general, let alone just upstate. And it was insane. Zero Tolerance was insane. They were mean. They were heavy. They were athletic. They were a great band. So Chris was on track with that. And I wouldn't use the term best, but I want to mention my friend DJ Rose for his band Path of Resistance. They were extremely creative and they gave like a real interesting spin to some things. And I liked it. I got to see it 3 times. I'm not sure how many total shows they played. I got to see it 3 times. I got to book it 1 time. And they were just mean and scary. And there was just a bunch of dudes on the stage singing, and they wore masks and all this crazy stuff. And they were kind of the synopsis of Syracuse for me at the time. There was a lot of other great bands from there too. Another Victim. A lot of great bands from Syracuse. Buffalo, Zero Tolerance was incredible. Slugfest, Despair, Buried Alive from Buffalo. Even Cinderblock, when they put 2 singers on the stage for a minute, was incredible. Other sneaky bands from Buffalo, like Against All Hope and Fade Away and things like that, they were just a little bit on the lighter side, but they were excellent. Rochester had some good bands. Early days. One of my favorite bands was Betrayed from here. Our friend Eric Werner sang for a band called Betrayed. Subsequently, there was another band called Betrayed. That's not this one. This is an older band. They were frightening. They were heavy. They wrote great songs. I think, I don't know, this might be dicey, but I'm going to say it. I think maybe the heaviest upstate New York song ever was from a short-lived, questionable band from here called Shotokan, and it was called Dirtbag, and it was just mean. The lyrics were mean. It was from a time when a lot of those guys were just doing kind of grunt work jobs, and it was just a mean, great song. That's enough about that stuff. No one cares about that. But Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse were great. Zero Tolerance was great. A lot of the Buffalo bands that Scott Vogel fronted were great. My friend Larry Ransom sang for Envy. They were great. I loved everything about that entire era. So that's probably a long answer to a short question. Best advice for someone who is feeling lost and directionless in life. Jeez, I mean, that's probably another hour show, because I've certainly been there. Even when I've had direction, I've felt like that. Everything I've done since I was a kid was uphill, and some of it has gone well, and as I've mentioned, some of it has gone poorly. But even when it's gone well, it hasn't been anything that resembled easy. I've been around a lot of bad people, and it's definitely worn on me, and so I understand that feeling. But even the fact that you're on here looking at this, you're not lost or directionless. If you're on here listening to this right now, there's a direction for you. You have it. You found it. There's a spark. So follow it. I mean, if it's training, then train, man. Pay attention to some details and improve yourself. Improvement and empowerment are the most powerful drugs, and you can always connect with people on here. There's no lip service going on with what we do at Wolf Brigade. There are people in this small community that will always reach back out to someone, and that's what makes this different, and that's part of what makes it not necessarily a fitness industry product. And part of what makes us stand out a little bit differently is that none of us are just these thoroughbreds that walked out of the fucking womb with abs and great hair. It's been a challenge for all of us to find each other, and now that we somewhat have, we understand how important that is, and everyone is always willing to reach back out and help someone else do that. So even the fact that you're here means that you're not directionless. So that's a start. Have we had PC people protest or confront you? How have I managed that type of nonsense? I mean, that's nonsense. People have said some things behind the scenes. I mean, I don't mean to sound in any type of way egotistical or foreboding about this, but no one says anything to us in person. Everything is said behind the scenes. Even people from the fitness industry, high-level folks that I've maybe looked up to in the past or something that are some of our detractors, they would never say it in person. I was meticulous enough about what we built before we showed anybody that there's a lot of it that's irrefutable. Of course, there's opinion, and of course there are people out there doing certain things better than we are. But as an entire product, I would like to see someone contend it. As a philosophy, I would like to see someone contend it. The only people that say anything about us are fear mongers, people that don't actually want to do their homework, and people that are just looking for some type of scapegoat. They're looking to make someone into a monster, and because we're a little bit different and we approach things differently, I've been an easy target for that stuff. But no one protests us in person, and no one says shit. And if they do, then great. I'm well prepared for civil discourse, and I'm well prepared for uncivil discourse. Hello. I like your tagline, subversive fitness. Will you please explain what we mean by that? Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Well, I mean, we knew when I left Long Beach, and I knew that we were going to do something different with fitness when I came back here to Rochester. I knew it was going to stir up some dust. I knew that I was good at what I was doing. I knew that I needed to advance it and hone it in and really come up with a kind of a perfect mixture for it. But I also needed to make something irrefutable that I knew would be widely accepted by people looking at it with the right minds. So once that started to happen, and we started to be able to prove some things that most people had never seen before or even really thought about. I mean, in terms of kettlebell and mace lifting, we've produced the heaviest versions and the safest versions of all conventional lifts, and a handful that we've also constructed and invented of any place in the world. There are a few real phenoms out there with heavy kettlebells that lift really, really heavy. And they're incredible, and I love watching them all the time, but they're also relatively predictable in that way. Big, strong people that look like they're going to lift giant kettlebells. What we've built is a group of normal people, some that are far smaller than normal, and they're lifting things that, fully certified XYZs couldn't even pick up off the ground. So I guess the subversive fitness notion was we knew that what we were doing was different. We knew it was going to change some things, but we also knew that it was going to take a long time, and it has. It's taken a lot longer than I thought, and it's still not even anywhere close to where it's going to be yet. But the notion of subverting is something that I've paid attention to and hunted since I was young. And with fitness, it's the same. And then with the people that we have managed to rattle their cage, and it's been some pretty high level folks. It's never fun to have people you've looked up to in the past throwing stones at you. I'm experienced at it at this point, unfortunately. And I guess it just comes down to every old guard eventually shifts. If their ego's being bruised, it is the cost of your empowerment and improvement. That's a price I'm willing to pay all day long. I wouldn't even think twice about it. Thank you. I hope that answered your question. Thank you. Funny. Yeah. Well, I mean, what do they say, right? About imitation. Thank you. Does my previous spine injury still affect my training? Yeah. Well, something like that. I would love to say no, but the answer is yes. And anything that's been interrupted in that midline, anything that's been interrupted in a spinal way or something like that it's always going to affect something. Even psychologically. I mean, when I first started re-grooming myself to lift relatively heavy things, my body felt different. My back felt a little bit different. And there's a level of fear there, even though you know that that's probably the most stable part of your body now. It's still unnerving. So at first especially, it's much more of a mental interruption. The poor way that mine went added a lot of trouble. My left leg hurt for 8 years straight. My left big toe is still only partially functional. So I had to retrain a lot of movement patterns, and I had to really practice a lot of weird, stupid, annoying shit in order to get it to work anything that resembled correctly. So a big injury like that, especially one that gets surgerized, is always going to impact you a little bit. But don't let it impact you too much. We've hit on that a lot this time, and I don't want to oversell it, but you've got to be ready to pay for what you played, and that's just going to mean some detailed stuff in climbing back up and some durability. This is a great question, though. Thank you. A book recommendation to maintain a high quality mindset during this quarantine. Jeez, I don't know. I'm not sure whether to answer that with a sense of humor or not. Fahrenheit 451, 1984. I'm not really sure. As far as mindset books, I don't know. I know a lot of people rely a lot on those. I know that a lot of people write excellent ones. It's never really truly been my cup of tea, so I'm not going to manufacture an answer that may not be totally genuine. I think there's a lot of critical thinkers that even just present information on the internet, and a lot of old-time thinkers that hit things on the head so squarely that I'm not sure they need any revisiting. And truly, with stuff like mindset, it's whatever resonates with you. I mean, there are records I can listen to, and I could probably read a 300-page personal empowerment book and not get nearly the spark or stoke that I would get out of listening to, I don't know, a Youth of Today record or something like that. So it also depends on what lands for you. Some people really resonate with that type of stuff, and while I respect the people that write those types of books and have a story that makes it interesting, it's not always my cup of tea. Oh, what did I do? Oh, no, we're good. Do you program differently for older, injured people? That's a great question. So injured and old are different. Really quick. Sorry, Alex asked twice. Yeah, so right now I'm not even addressing convergence being rescheduled. We're not even going to think about it, but thank you. We'll see. Actually, no, we won't see. Convergence is happening May 30th and 31st unless something extremely unusual happens. Older and injured are very, very different for very different reasons. Injured, you could be 21 thoroughbred, injured, then we will program differently, but not so ridiculously differently that it doesn't look like what we're doing now. Because what we're doing now is sound as far as movement pattern, positional accuracy, eliciting the correct power systems and the correct durations and volumes, the accessory work, the way that we warm up and cool down. The program is excellent. If someone's injured, they may need certain tailoring of certain aspects of it, but in general, the framework is there, and so we know how to plug and play the right things in order to keep them building those functions without changing the exact strategy. So someone may not be able to do, say like a barbell press, but there is a 100% certainty that if they cannot press a barbell, that they can press a kettlebell, or they can overhead press a mace, or they can floor press a kettlebell, or they can press a band, or something like that. We have the details in place to apply any of those sub-strategies. So injured is different than older. Older, if we, and I've had a few in the past, but if we had someone old, they would still move through the same movement patterns. Of course, the weight and the volume would be different. Some of the energy systems would still be relevant and some would not. But the other thing is we're redefining old. A couple of our absolute favorite people would be considered by conventional fitness standards old. One of them happens to have a 100-pound Turkish get-up. And not some clunky, fucked up 100-pound Turkish get-up. A seamless, surgical Turkish get-up that started with a kettlebell clean and push press that I would put up against the technical details of any Turkish get-up I've ever seen done by a human being. And that person is 60 years old. So old is different, injured is different. If you're training people properly, they can train well into whatever years they want to train into, and the devil is in the details, much as it is with everything. Bad programming hurts young people the same way it hurts old people. So I think we're good. I think our questions are done. What else have we got? Let me look. Okay, we covered convergence. I may have gone over it a little too quickly, but the guest speakers for convergence are bananas. I mean, the last couple years has been pretty impressive. I couldn't really imagine bringing people here that I have more personal and professional respect for than we have the last 2 years. So that's really excellent. Any experience with pain management? Another big question, and yes, both poorly and well. Surgery is bad news because when they fix you, but they haven't really fixed you, then they still feel the need to fix you. So they usually send you to physical therapy or something, and very seldom is it actually accurate for what you particularly need. There are great ones, of course. I'm not painting with such a broad brush that I'm saying there's no good physical therapists in the world. But very often it's a playbook, and it's a stupid one. Much like conventional chiropractic, you can't just walk in and have someone touch your shoulder and decide they need to crack your back and send you home and bring you back in a week and a half. That's just not how it fucking works. So in the same vein, when you get done with surgery, if it doesn't go perfectly, they're going to feed you whatever they need to feed you to keep you quiet and out of their hair. And that's where pain management becomes a really tricky game, because their easiest and cheapest option is to program you opiates. And once they're in your program, then they want to stay there. And that's a trap I fell into after surgery. I fought it off as long as I could. And it's something I'm still really hard on myself about, and something that caused a lot of problems for me. I was misprescribed a steroid after they realized that they had done non-surgery damage to me. And video of a 6-year-old guy doing 100-pound Turkish. Yeah, that's right. It's on our Instagram. Also, Bailey, you could point them to it. I would appreciate that. Anyway, I was misprescribed a steroid after they realized that they had done non-surgical damage to me, and the ham-fisted PA that was there at the time didn't titrate me off the steroid, basically just dropped me off at cold, and it fucking wrecked me for 6 months. So after that, the discomfort and dysfunction levels were such that I started taking oxycodone, and I took it as limitedly as I possibly could. But my goal has always been to never stop doing what we're doing with the gym, doing what we're doing with training. And at that time, we didn't have a phenomenal world-class handful of instructors like we do now. So if at that point I would have had to take time off or change direction or something like that, it may never have gotten where it was going to go, and fuck that. So I just did whatever I had to do to get there and do a great job teaching class and training people, and train myself any way I possibly could. And it snuck up on me quite severely, and then eventually you realize that you've got to turn a corner. So I did that any way I could. Now I take a lot of really, really great CBD. That is a really dicey industry. That is a really rife with misinformation industry. I am not victim to that. I'm very fortunate. That has helped me a lot. Moving really, really well all the time has helped me a lot. A lot of really smart mobility has helped me a lot. And in general, the mental clarity that comes with knowing that you're in control of your own destiny in a way is something that I would never sacrifice again. I've never taken drugs for anything like that. I mean, when I was riding BMX and I didn't have health insurance, I've given myself stitches. I've walked around with different injuries. I got asked to go on a phenomenal BMX trip when I was younger, and I had a broken wrist at the time, and for a kid like me, for a kid like me from Rochester, New York, that was the opportunity of a lifetime. So I took the cast off and went on the trip. So I understand dealing with pain the right way. I understand dealing with it the wrong way. But the mental clarity of dealing with it is the most important thing. So if I can encourage you to pursue any course of action outside of opiates. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to hear that. Could we program around a couple of blown out knees that couldn't hold a squat position to save a life? Of course. I mean, there's no untrainability. Innate constitutional weakness is the only untrainability we have ever come upon. If someone doesn't want to be strong, then they won't be strong. If they want to be strong, we will make them strong. That's the end of the story. If you'd like to get in touch, you're welcome to. Great. Thank you, Chris. Increasing weights on the maces. Yeah, well, I mean, common sense will dictate. And again, it all comes down to details. So we've got that definitive Mace 360 tutorial up on YouTube. There's a ton of stuff on there. This is a perfect segue to finish us up. We're going to put the public assistance videos that are on YouTube now, detailing the movements, and then also a really fun one just detailing how we make an implement or two. We're going to put those in the Instagram TV this week. The other thing we're going to do is we have 2 paid videos on Vimeo right now, mace lifting for strength training and the clinic we did at Sansu, Tulsa. And we're going to put them up for free starting tomorrow on YouTube. If you haven't purchased and seen them, one thing I would ask you to consider is, why have you not done so? They weren't overpriced, even though at this point they're a little bit older. No one has ever even shown anything remotely like what is in there yet, and they won't. And they're going to be extremely valuable in accessorizing anything you guys are doing if you haven't seen them yet. So Mace Lifting for Strength Training and Sansu Tulsa Clinic, movement improvement that relates a lot to martial arts and mindset and stuff. They will be on YouTube for free tomorrow. And keep in mind, we have a PayPal donation channel set up for the Public Assistance Project. And if you see anything valuable in what we're doing, and I'm sure most of you do, we are tiny. I firmly believe, and I also firmly know that I can prove that we are among the best facilities in the world. I diagnose and address movement differently than anyone I've ever seen, and I believe I can elicit progress in any athlete walking the earth. But that does not mean that the way that we handle ourselves, the way that a lot of what we do comes across and things like that, doesn't put us into kind of a marginalized position. So we always like assistance from people that we give assistance to. We never want anything for free. Thank you. The purchase ones are on our Vimeo, Vimeo. I think it's under Wolf Brigade, and there's 2 on there. Thank you very much, Chris. You'll enjoy them. Yeah, great. JR. Moving motivation to action. It's a great question, and it's a sneaky one. Everyone likes to think that they're action people, and in general, a lot of people aren't. And in general, a lot of times, I'm not. I mean, you get overwhelmed, you get discouraged. Everyone does. Anyone that says that they don't get overwhelmed and discouraged is not trying hard enough in life. But a lot of times for me, it's about singling something out. So we talk about in training a lot of 9-in-1 progress strategy or variable elimination strategy. If you're doing 9 things well in a movement and 1 thing poorly, and you have at least enough experience, or your trainer does, to know that those 9 things are on track, well, you just totally take them off your mind and you single out that 1 thing, and then that thing will improve. It will correspondingly improve. We see it all the time. I mean, truly, it's phenomenal. So the same would go from turning thought into action. If the hamster wheel is turning too fast and it's spinning you off, you just got to slow that fucker down and pick something out and handle it, and then move on to something else. We just call it checking the boxes. You know, we say it as the same thing before training. You know, we check the boxes before we go into a tedious or challenging training piece. And the same thing is translating thought into action. If you're thinking about 25 things and you've got all these grandiose ideas and all these big plans, but you can't put 1 thing down to paper, well, the 25 are never going to be anything. So single them out to 1 and address them and improve them, and then move on to something else. Okay, we're going to call it. Thank you so much. Anything that we're doing that you're interested in, please feel free to share it with others. That's how this thing gets the legs it deserves. And communicate with our people on here. As long as you're never doing so opportunistically, everyone that trains with us and interacts with us on the internet would be absolutely more than happy to help answer questions that you have. That's how this thing works. That's why it's different, and that's why it's going to weather these storms. Take care of each other. We'll see you soon.